morning. This is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast.
Good morning. This is the Eager Beaver Show.
You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, your uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and the Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. Well, good morning and hello, kids, and welcome to season 4 and episode 500 of the Daily Beaver Morning Show here on the Crier Media Network. Yeah. Wow, 500. How cool is that? I'm your host, the Eager Beaver, pronouns he, him, hey, Mr. Beaver A. And with me, as always, is my good friend, Mr. Grizzly. Big thank you goes to our podcast founding sponsors, the Peppermaster, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, and CanadianTarot.com. Have no idea what kind of day it's going to be at the Beaver Lodge. Opted for more sleep instead of getting up really early. So you can see I brought the designer Beaver Lodge Louis Vuittons with me this morning. Packed my own bags. And the nation's capital, it looks like it's a lovely day starting. That's a lovely blue sky and gorgeous sunrise. Lovely, lovely, lovely. Mr. Grizzly, how was your weekend and how is your mental health today, sir?
Sorry, I had to clear my throat there at the last second. Weekend. Saturday was busy for me. Very, very busy. I spent several hours in studio finishing up a book. Submitted it. Author's really happy. He loves what I did. And it's off to Audible for final approvals. That takes about 10 days, apparently. And then it'll start to sell. So once I get a saleable link, I'll share it with everybody. So if anybody wants to make a purchase of the novel I read out. It's a short story. It's only about 102 pages, so it's like maybe 3 hours of your time if you take your time to listen to it in one shot. I narrated the whole thing in 2 hours and 30 minutes over the course of time, right? Like that. But yeah, so it it should be out in about 10 days.
Oh, nice, lovely.
Yeah, so that was Saturday. Then we went out for dinner and just took it easy, nothing crazy, and came home and watched the Red Blacks game. They were successful. They
finally
they won. Yeah. They'd been on a losing.
They
skid
went for a
while.
walk for a couple of weeks.
Yeah. After starting out so great, they just kind of tanked, and then they got back into it and they won. So they're in the playoffs.
Yeah, they got back to it at the end of the last game, in the fourth quarter of the last game, and then
against Toronto, the Argos. Yeah. They almost pulled off a victory in that game too. They had 2 onside kicks, like 2 in a row. I've never ever seen that happen before. I've seen teams attempt it, but I've never seen teams succeed at it, and they did. So, and then of course they beat Hamilton the other night. So yeah, they're playoff bound and on the upswing. So
yeah,
who knows? Hey, playoffs. You only need 1 win to get into the big game.
Well, exactly. Right? Yeah. Because now I was watching. I think it was like 3 matches ago, where like they had lost like 3 in a row already, and it's like, and they were like, if we do the math, Ottawa just needs to win one more, and they're absolutely in. And it's like they lose, and then they lose again,
Yeah.
And it's like, will
Guys.
you just seal the damn deal already?
Now, I think they have to play against Montreal, so
Ooh, that's gonna be a tough match.
yeah,
That's gonna be a very tough match.
it is because I mean they won the Grey Cup last year, and deservedly so. And this they've had a good season. So who
Mhm.
you know
But
anything
Ottawa
can
has
happen.
beat them this year, right? At
Yes,
least
yeah,
once? Yes.
yeah.
Early on. So, yeah, you never know. You never know. That's what got my attention early in the season. It's like, "What? Oh, something's
Anything can
happening in
happen.
Ottawa." Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool,
So
cool,
the
cool.
Eastern semifinal is Saturday, November 2nd, Ottawa at Toronto. Then the Eastern final will be the victor of that game against Montreal in Montreal on Saturday, November 9th. And then the Grey Cup is Sunday, November 17th. I was just looking at the schedule here. So,
Okay. That's good stuff. Some CFL action there.
yeah.
No. That's this year. How would I put it? Um, I I'm not a I'm a fan of I am a fan of the CFL.
Mhm.
Like this, other than tennis of live sports, it is the live sport I have seen the most often. But I follow the standings every year, but I don't
Right.
necessarily watch a ton of matches or follow the teams or know who's on what. But when Ottawa is in the mix, though, however, because being an Ottawa boy, I do pay a little more attention.
Understandable, you know.
So yeah. Oh, well, that's good. That's good because I've been. I guess I could confess to say that I'm a bandwagon jumper, CFL
Oh,
fan.
that's fine. That's fine. Hey, look, as long as people tune in, you know, the thing that, look, hockey is a global sport, right? There's countries all around the world playing it. It's being picked up in more places than ever before. And oddly enough, they're building rinks in areas that don't ever get cold. Throughout Saudi, throughout, you know, Middle East, they're building rinks and the sport is taking off globally. It hasn't been our game in a very long time.
Right.
Our only game, truthfully, our only game that is only ours, 100% ours, is the CFL. It's a brand of football that's only played in Canada. Now, yes, something like 40% of the players are American born. That's fine and understandable, but it's our sport. It's a unique brand of gridiron football, and it's only played in Canada. So they are trying to expand the league and forming CFL rules based teams throughout Mexico and other nations where it's beginning to pick up some steam. And people who start to watch it get that it's a lot more freewheeling than the NFL. It tends to be higher scoring because the bigger field lends itself to that. But yeah, it's our sport. It's the only sport that is truly ours. It's truly Canada's sport. So I'd just like to see more people get out and support it. And look, I'm not going to debate which league is better or which game is better. I know that the NFL has the best players in the world. I prefer the CFL game. That's me.
Right. And speaking of Canadian athletes, if you happen to be a figure skating fan, the Grand Prix season has started all over again. For those who don't know, the Grand Prix is a series of 6 events in 6 different nations: the United States, Canada, France, Finland, and Japan, and China, I believe. I could be wrong on that last one, however. Where a group of skaters get together, they compete for points. They compete at each team or individual competes in 2 of the 6 of the year, and there are points, and the 6 highest points getters show up to a final Grand Prix event, and that usually precedes somehow the Continental Championships and then World Championships that come along. Canada is not doing well and hasn't been doing well in single skating since about 2018. That's when I think it was Caitlin Osman won a gold medal in singles, and she retired, I think, 2 years later or the year after.
Mhm.
And then for the men, it's been since Patrick Chan, who I think stopped skating in 2013 and was recently inducted into the Canadian Sports Hall of Fame. But where we have been very successful in the intervening time is in ice dance and also in pairs figure skating. And in the pairs event, current world champions Diana Stellato-Dudek and Maxime Deschamps won the gold at the Skate Canada International event. And in the ice dance, world champion medalists, I believe they were silver medalists last year, Piper Gillies of Canada and Paul Poirier of Canada won their 5th Skate Canada International in ice dancing. And Zachary Laga and Marjorie Lajoie took the silver in ice dance. And I believe they finished 5th in the world last year. So good performances from Canadians at Skate Canada International, revealing their programs. Skate Canada International is the second one in the series after the United States. So for figure skating fans, the early ones, the first 3, are the chances to see their favorite skaters' new programs, short and long, for the season. And it seems that if you like ice dancing, and even if you don't like ice dancing, it's not particularly your favorite, you're more about the jumps and whatnot. Paul Poirier and Piper Gillies they are some of the most entertaining ice dancers to watch because they've been at it for so long now. It's a bit like Virtue and Moore, that the reveal of every number in the sports world is an event. So it seems that for their short this year, I believe they have a Barbie and Ken inspired number. That was a lot of fun. So there you go, kids and cubs. Hopefully you will get a chance to watch that. I'm sure a lot of it is available on streaming if you happen to miss it. But this is the part for our winter athletes where they start to get very, very serious, because there's this winter and the following winter is the Olympics. So this is where they start their peaking process for the Olympics. And just on that, since we're mentioning that, on the short track speed skating world tour, because our winter athletes have been back at it for about a week or two, we have a skater named William Danjinu, who won a pair of gold medals in Montreal. He raced gold in the 500 meter and the 1,500 meter, and he shared the podium with Stephen Dubois, also of Canada, in both races, claiming the silver in the 500 and bronze in the 1,500. So that is some very, very good results over there for Team Canada. So yes, and there's probably more results to come. Because the Sunday included finals for the 500 meter relay, and Canada is usually pretty good in the relays, along with the women's 500, 1,500 meter events and the mixed team relay as well. So we'll probably have more results from those athletes in the coming days. But so Canada doing well on the winter sports circuit right away as soon as it starts. That's good to hear. And I'm not sure if I mentioned it on the show, but for curling fans, there was some really shattering news in that Team Gushu let go, or there was an amicable parting of ways of their second, E.J. Harden, who has won a world championship and an Olympic gold medal as part of the Brad Jacobs team when they were representing Northern Ontario, and has replaced him with Brendan Botcher, who used to be the skip, I believe, of Team Alberta when he started, and was let go by his team early this year, which was a big, really, really big news, because as an individual curler, he really is one of the best, and he was the one that was emerging as, the next, when Gushu and Nadine retire, the next curling dynasty would probably be a Botcher one. But it seems it wasn't working out, so all of a sudden, Team Gushu is potentially even more of a powerhouse than it was before with shot making. Not sure that Brendan Botcher will be able to sweep like E.G. Harden did, because that man was a beast. But as a skip, Brendan Botcher, many times when he has to make the shot, he makes the shot. And being a second myself, you can kind of make or break your team. If your second's off, you're going to have a really rough game. Let's just put it that way. I've learned that the hard way. My team kind of lives or dies by how I play. So unless our third is really on and keeps bailing me out. Because when I'm done, if the team isn't set up well, there's only 4 shots left to get rid of a mess. So yeah, you kind of live and die by your seconds. So yeah, and they've been doing well already on the international circuit as well. Yeah, the winter sports, and there's been a couple of other things too. There's been, I think, some big air competitions and stuff, and I think the first downhill skiing has started as well. So you'll be hearing more from our winter athletes very soon, kids and cubs. Also, since we're talking about the Canadians that made us proud, Rebecca Marino won a doubles title in tennis over the course of the weekend and got to a semis in singles. I believe that Liam Drexel and Cleve Harper also won a doubles title somewhere along the way. Danielle Martin got to a singles final in a tournament as well. And there was one other person, I can't remember off the top of my head, but our tennis players over the last 2-3 weeks have been winning titles, making finals, making semifinals at all levels, from the ITF juniors all the way to the actual Grand Tour. So there's a lot to be proud of, especially as the big competitions are coming up in early November. The Davis Cup is going to start again and whatnot. So it's nice to see our men's singles players getting back into form. All right. News. Whew. Okay. First of all, Saskatchewan people, today's your day. Early voting stopped on the 26th. So yesterday was a day off of voting, and also for the poll workers, take a little breather because today is a long day. If you are a poll worker in Saskatchewan, hats off to you. You are in for a solid 10 to 12 hour day, I would say today, possibly more, because in Saskatchewan, the law is specifically that they have to manually hand count the votes, so results could take a little longer coming in. There is an expectation that voter turnout will be high this time in Saskatchewan. I think it was in Citrix polling, came out. It might be Main Street on this one. I could be having this wrong. Came out with some polling for the end of the weekend, and they not only polled on the horse race, but on who was likely to vote. So it seems that, first of all, it's Inside Tricks polling. I got it here on my notes. This came out 6 days ago. One of the big things to notice is that they ask the people who they're going to vote for, and then they ask how decided they are to vote. Right? So the number of undecideds have dropped from 33% to 21% in these numbers in about a month. So more people are definitely decided. The numbers are slightly more reliable. It says here, when asked if they are going to vote, 78% of respondents said that they absolutely will vote. Another 10% say they are very likely to. If that is actually true, if all of them showed up, voter turnout would be about 80%. 70 or 80%.
That'd be good. I'd like to
That's
see it.
That's very rare in Canada.
Yes.
We had like 50 something in BC. We had mid 60s in New Brunswick. And by today's standards, that's good. But right now there seems to be a lot of interest in this particular election. So that's kind of interesting. And why would there be a lot of interest in this particular election? Well, one, the Sask Party is trying to go for a 5th straight term. This, as I pointed out before, which I find ironic, because at the federal level, Trudeau's trying to go for a 4th straight term, which has never been done. And they're saying, oh my God, isn't that too much? And it's like, and I know all 5 terms haven't been Scott Moe. There was Brad Wall before, but 5 terms of a Sask Party. You think it's time for a change? Carla Beck, the leader of the NDP, sure does. She made it her campaign slogan. But that media narrative is nowhere. 3 federal Liberal mandates, that's enough. 4 Sask Party mandates in a row, going for a 5th, no problem. Nothing wrong with that. Completely normal.
Yeah, that's completely
Not even
fine.
worth mentioning.
No.
Okay. All right. So here's one of the reasons things got a little interesting, Mr. Grizzly. According to 338.com, the polling aggregator, there are a whole bunch of polls that have come in lately. And I'm going to ask you to take a look at something, and I think something will become very obvious to you just by looking. Now, 338 likes to, I'll just adjust this a little bit here. They say the polling firm. So you have Forum Research, Research Company, Liaison Strategies, Main Street Research, Insitrix Research, Cardinal Research, Janet Brown Polling. A lot of these are names I do not know. I have to say, we're getting far away from our Angus Reeds and Legers and the ones that we grew up with here. Now, Cardinal Research, which is a brand new one and has no rating, I don't know anything about it, came out over the weekend and said they had Sask Party 49, NDP 43. But Insitrix, Main Street, Liaison, Research, and Forum being one of the big ones, yes, all with ratings from A to B minus, have all come out over the weekend. And what do you notice, Mr. Grizzly?
I can't really see that. It's too small on my screen.
Okay, I can make
Hang on,
it
I'll blow
little,
it up here.
No,
You don't have to worry about it. I can do it from my end.
Okay.
So, looks like the NDP is up in several places.
The last 5 polls to report.
Yeah. But
all
you know how
since
I feel about
the 19th.
polls.
I know. All since the 19th. From 5 different companies. Show NDP plus 5, NDP plus 4, NDP plus 3, NDP plus 2, and NDP plus 3. When I noted a couple of weeks ago that Saskatchewan Premier Scott Moe, after the debate, was starting to campaign like he was losing. But we couldn't figure out why, because the most recent poll before this weekend was on the 8th, showing the Sask Party with a plus 8. And Insitrix, here, if you go down, showing plus 1, plus 1, plus 2. Insitrix has been showing the Sask Party in the lead in Saskatchewan since February of this year, but was the only polling company showing Saskatchewan in the lead until just this past weekend when 4 others came around and confirmed it. So maybe Insitrix has been seeing something that the others haven't all this time. And if it does, the polling landscape for Insitrix is really going to change, because they are going to become the most popular kid at the party. For having seen it so long ago. But if we're talking about potential flips, this is real.
Oh, yeah.
This is very, very real. Now, the way that the seats are organized in Saskatchewan, it is such that there's a rural advantage for the Sask Party. Okay. So according to 338 Canada, again, they're saying that it's now NDP 48, Sask Party 47. That's changed since yesterday, because yesterday was 47-47. So 338 is now showing the NDP in the lead for the first time by 1%. And on seat projection, literally 31-30. And you need 31 for majority. So 31 for the Sask Party. But it was on the 26th, just 2 days ago, it was showing Sask Party 32, NDP 29. And they were at 47-47. So if the NDP has momentum going into the end, And voting day is today. And early voting, according to Saskatchewan, Election Saskatchewan, is higher than it has been. It's breaking records. This is looking very, very, very good for the Saskatchewan NDP. And
Well,
for
let's see
people
what
who
comes
love
of this.
Canada, this is really, really good, because if we flip one more province, then we can really breathe easier for a while with regard to having an all-out assault on our Constitution. Now, according to the Insitrix poll, and again, this is 6 days ago, showing the NDP leading. So there's been another week since then. And it hasn't been going well for Scott Moe. It really hasn't. The NDP leads in Saskatoon and Regina, but still trails in the north and the south. The south has 7% of voters supporting other parties, however. Remember, there's a breakaway Conservative Party in Saskatchewan that thought that Scott Moe wasn't right-wing enough. So I think Saskatchewan United or something, they're competing. So they are taking some vote away in the north and the south and the rural regions. In all four regions, Saskatchewan people think it's a time for a change. Even in the north or south, where it still looks like more people are planning to vote for Sask Party than NDP, they still think it's time for a change. Less so in the north or the south, but they do. That's not the water, the overall temperature of the water that the Sask Party and Scott Moe are swimming in right now is not good at all. Now, it would seem that the end of the supply and confidence agreement in Ottawa did somewhat help with this. So Jagmeet Singh may have helped the Saskatchewan NDP by doing that, because Scott Moe's plan was to tie Carla Beck to the confidence agreement from the get-go. It seems that he was lining up there, and but the provincial NDP says that they are not particularly pro-Trudeau and not particularly fond of the carbon tax themselves. So that was never able to stick, and the angle didn't ended up manifesting itself in the campaign until the debate itself, when Scott Moe mentioned it several times, and it kind of fell flat. Didn't work. Carla Beck was elected the leader of the New Democrats Party about a year and a half ago, immediately stated she was not in favor of consumer carbon pricing. She's in favor of carbon pricing, just not at the consumer point. And she says, has made a point throughout her time in Saskatchewan so far as leader of saying that she's made that very clear to Mr. Singh in Ottawa. She kept, the carbon tax, even though Scott Moe's tried to make it an issue, it seems that the issues in the campaign have remained around healthcare affordability and education, which of course are NDP strong points. According to Liberal internal polling in New Brunswick, I'm not sure it was Liberal internal polling, so I might have misnoted that, but according to internal polling in, New Brunswick. That's not about Saskatchewan, of course. After the debate, Scott Moe came out stating that his first order of business, if elected, would be a policy around gender and change rooms. You will notice that we've talked about that a little bit before, and it seems there was a story of two 10-year-olds that were in a change room. One of them, I guess, identifies as transgender. Nothing happened. They were just got out that somebody who may or may not be transgender was changing in a change room. And it seems that media and all other people lost leave of their senses and said, well, who are these kids? And let out information that could identify them.
Yeah, that was
10-year-old kids.
Yeah.
So that certainly did not help his campaign, because the good people of Saskatchewan got a taste of how such policies actually hurt people in real life. And maybe people who still want to protect kids and care about kids saw that and go, whoa, I didn't mean that. Not at that price. What are you guys doing out there?
I don't know. I really don't know.
Because there's a lot of these policies that a lot of people are okay with in theory, and then they see what happens, like in Quebec when that Muslim teacher that
Mm-hmm.
everybody loved
Yeah.
was forced out of her job. Then all of a sudden they all started protesting. It's like, it would have been nice if you had protested before the law was being passed. But now that you
Well,
see what that law actually does in real life,
so many of these laws, they reflect on them. They go, well, it doesn't affect me, so what do I care? Until it does affect them, then they suddenly care.
it's the teacher that your child loves and
Yeah.
is doing a good job,
Yeah.
right? So, yeah. The way that this story came out apparently is the day after the debate, he decided to hold a press availability that didn't have a policy announcement with it. So I guess he knew it went bad and decided to like come out again the next morning and put a good face on things and try to introduce something new that would be a new narrative other than his debate performance. So it was strictly a press availability that was not scheduled originally and then came about. And but he scheduled it because simultaneously, as it was counter programming, on the steps of the legislature in Saskatchewan, there was 3 former Saskatchewan Party members who were publicly endorsing Carla Beck, and so did former Speaker Randy Weeks. Somewhere along the way, also formally endorsed Carla Beck.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Well, and you saw that Nova Scotia looks like they're about to enter election season 2.
yeah, they've announced that. Yeah,
You
it's on
wonder,
the
all these conservative-run provinces are suddenly calling elections. And here's the funny thing about Nova Scotia. You had a premier who said, we've got a set election date. And then he moved the goalposts on that one because the election isn't for another year.
it wasn't supposed to be until the summer of next year.
2025, yeah.
Yeah. Now, in the case of BC, Saskatchewan, and New Brunswick, they had to go. This was their time.
Yes.
So they had to go. On the Nova Scotia thing, Nova Scotia was the only province that did not have a fixed election date law. So Tim Houston brought it in 2021 and is proceeding to violate it, just like Stephen Harper did, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Just saying, Stephen Harper violated it. But he was rewarded with the majority for having done it. And then a couple of months later, Canadians got buyer's remorse pretty darn quick. So, but yeah, it looks like he's going early. He's announced he's gone to the lieutenant governor, and the date will be November 26th in Nova Scotia, trying to fit an election in under the wire because his fears if Poilievre wins and we get a taste of him, then maybe that won't happen. He also didn't want to go at the same time. He's thinking that there might be a summer election, so he doesn't want to go at the same time or compete with that. That part I would understand, but this, like I noted on the show, if provinces are starting to flip, that is usually a sign that the federal government will indeed flip, and if you're a Nova Scotia or Newfoundland and Labrador, you might want to secure your own mandate before that happens. Just saying. So looks like that's a little bit of that is going on. But it's really curious that the guy that railed against non-fixed election dates because it gives the party that calls it the advantage breaks it at the first damn opportunity. Yep. Says a lot about your word, buddy. Says a lot about your word. In Saskatchewan, there's also been a couple of controversies for the Sask Party. Candidate named Gary Grail, who is a past Saskatchewan Party member, seems that there was a conflict of interest thing from him having, guessing it's the same thing in Ontario. There were children in care that are not staying in care homes, some of them in Airbnbs and hotels and stuff. So they were staying in establishments that he owned, and this was not declared within the 90-day reporting period. And then there's another MLA, Jeremy Cockrell, apparently has some conflict of interest with regard to something having to do with a Windows business or something. So those came out. There was also a gunshot, it is believed, I think, at in an office window of a Sask Party candidate whose last name is Singh. And this is serious because they thought it was a gunshot. Turns out that it was not caused by a gun. But before the police came out with anything, Scott Moe did a bit like PP did with the car and the bridge. Like, this is a gunshot thing, and it's a sign of this and a sign of that. And, Mr. Grizzly, I will send you a little clip here. Something happened to that narrative that got Scott Moe in a bit of trouble.
Oh.
I would say. Yeah.
Well, let's have a look.
Little premature enunciation.
Why did you characterize the vandalism as shooting?
Good morning, That's what the police said it was.
That was the only question Saskatchewan Party leader Scott Moe took from media. At a campaign stop in Prince Albert, Moe spent 15 minutes giving a speech that hit on familiar topics, such as a strong economy and the carbon tax. But what he didn't address were comments he made the day before.
What appears is there was at least one bullet that was shot into their campaign office. This is unprecedented for our province and unprecedented in a campaign.
All available evidence paints a much different picture. Police are continuing to investigate, but they say these two holes were not caused by a gun. Moe wouldn't tell media who told them the window was shot at, but Regina police say no officers told anyone the damage was the result of gunshots. A police timeline indicates Moe's comments on Tuesday were made before officers even arrived at the scene to investigate the report. Police also say the person who reported the damage wasn't even sure when it happened. They also confirmed that they've received multiple reports of property damage, such as broken windows, in the same area this week. NDP leader Carla Beck says Moe should be accountable for his comments.
As I've often said, I think as leaders we all have a responsibility to be careful with the words that we use. We have a choice to inflame or to show leadership.
Police are still trying to figure out how the window was damaged, no matter the cause. Beck says any threats of violence are unacceptable. Alexander Kwan, CBC News, Regina.
So it was a candidate Rahul Singh's office. But yeah.
Well, there was no bullet fragments or bullets found or casings or anything of that nature. So it's all very suspect.
It was a double pane window, and as you can see from the images, it didn't even break the second pane. So, Scott Moe had a pee-pee foot and mouth moment. Again, at least during the press stuff, he didn't turn around and start attacking the journalist for asking him why it is that he made a claim with no information. But yeah, that's not a good thing. And then one last little thing, and I'm sure there's probably a whole lot more, but this is a Kit who brought it to our attention. Minister Jeremy Harrison, it came out on the 21st, fired a Crown Corporation board chair who blew the whistle on an apparent conflict of interest. So they mentioned that there were two conflict of interests stories with Jeremy Cockrell and that other guy that's now left the party, Gary Growell. But here's more conflict of interest trouble. As Dennis Fitzpatrick sat in an airport lounge in Calgary on November 7th, 2021, he received a surprising email. Little did he know it would help him uncover a web of troubling relationships inside an influential Crown Corporation and place him in the crosshairs of one of Saskatchewan's most powerful politicians. Quote, I mean, when was the last time someone was fired, rehired, and fired again, said Fitzpatrick. The email was from Mike Crabtree, the president and CEO of the Saskatchewan Research Council, a Crown Corporation. SRC is a research and technology organization that supports innovation and industrial commercialization on behalf of the Saskatchewan government. It handles critical files like Saskatchewan's nuclear power program and water quality testing. Fitzpatrick, as board chair of the SRC since 2014, would receive updates from Crabtree as a matter of routine. But this one jumped out. Crabtree told Fitzpatrick he was hiring Aaron Herman as project manager and operations director for the SRC's high-profile rare earths elements project. Rare earths are 17 elements that are key components of many emerging technologies, from robotics to electric vehicles to consumer electronics like phones and hard drives. I believe lithium is one. That's why my Beaver sweetie is researching it. A brochure on the SRC's website promotes the organization's plans for rare earths processing facility. It went into production this past summer. At the time, the SRC was planning to build a groundbreaking REE processing facility in partnership with the private sector. The province is positioning itself to become one of the world's few largest REE processors. Since that email was sent, SRC went on to build a wholly government-owned $100 million REE processing facility in Saskatoon. It began production in the summer. Fitzpatrick was surprised when he was finding out about Herman's new job after the hiring was complete. Herman was a director on the SCRC board that Fitzpatrick chaired and would have to resign to accept this new role. Quote, I knew that Aaron Herman was an engineer, Fitzpatrick told CBC, but my understanding of his experience was not in mining and materials. Herman is a businessman, mechanical engineer, and inventor of industrial equipment with multiple U.S. and Canadian patents. Fitzpatrick, a former VP of research at the Universities of Regina and Lethbridge, wondered why Crabtree had selected Herman and why such a senior position had not been publicly advertised. Something seemed off. Quote, it was a shiny light sitting there saying, take a look at rare earths. There's something going on there, Fitzpatrick said. He would go on to discover that he would later describe it in email to colleagues as a Pandora's box, a, quote, web of business relations between Crabtree Herman and other SRC board member that Fitzpatrick believed put the organization at risk. But after Fitzpatrick blew the whistle on those apparent conflicts of interest, he says he was the one targeted. He was fired by then government House leader and minister responsible for SRC, Jeremy Harrison. Quote, the conclusion I draw from that was that the whole system was a little bit more bent than I really thought it was going to be, said Fitzpatrick, calling Harrison, quote, a bully. He was basically saying that he was in control, said Fitzpatrick. He was going to put in board members that were going to be supportive of anything that came out of the minister's office. Harrison ordered a review of Fitzpatrick's concerns by the Ministry of Justice. It concluded his allegations, quote, were not substantiated. But Fitzpatrick says that review, which he has not been allowed to see, appears to have ignored the facts. Quote, this is a cancer growing within the SRC, he said. Quote, somebody has to go in and audit the whole organization and figure out what's going on, where the conflicts are, and why those conflicts are allowed to exist. After the story was published Monday, the Saskatchewan NDP issued a news release that quoted Regina Elphinstone candidate Mira Conaway as saying, it is more clear than ever that the Sask party aren't in this for you. They're in it to help out their friends and insiders. When he got that surprise email about Herman's new job, Fitzpatrick was getting set to jump on a plane and fly to Saskatoon to visit SRC's head office. Part of his role of overseeing the Crown Corporation, he had recently become concerned that SRC was drifting from its mandate and becoming too closely tied to the government's agenda. He was going on a fact-finding mission. He started Googling Aaron Herman and almost immediately came across Quick3 Solutions, a company Herman had co-owned. On its website, Quick3 said it designs and builds, quote, unique portable industrial equipment. What he found next stunned him. Mike Crabtree had been a partner in Quick3. So had Michael Meekins, another SRC board member. Quote, that caught my attention because I had not made that connection before, Fitzpatrick said. He became concerned about the Crabtree hiring such a close business associate without advertising the position. CBC asked Crabtree by email why he hired Herman without advertising the position. An official replying on his behalf did not answer the question, but noted Herman, quote, is highly qualified and respected. Yes. Nothing says there's nothing going on here, but asking a question, why did you do this with, I am highly qualified and respected.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Are you questioning me? What qualifications and how respected are you in my field?
A very stable genius.
As board chair, it was Fitzpatrick's job to ensure SRC was managing its money and staff according to policy, including conflict of interest rules. He said these businesses' relationships had never been brought to his attention. Quote, they absolutely should have been, he said, noting that all SRC board minutes say, quote, members are required to declare any conflict of interest or apparent conflict of interest related to issues that may be discussed during the meeting. By email, a Crabtree spokesperson said, quote, there have been no conflicts of interest related to Mike during his tenure as president and CEO. They added, quote, he has disclosed all potential and perceived conflicts of interest in according with the appropriate processes. In early November 2021, Fitzpatrick began digging deeper into the connections between Crabtree, Meekins, and Herman. And the article actually has a subheader, and the subheader is called The Holy Shit Moment in a CBC article.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And not SI exclamation mark T or asterisk T. Shit. Fully written out. In early December 2021, he received an email from Peg Murray, seemingly out of the blue. Murray, who at the time was VP of Mining and Minerals for SRC, had been doing his own digging. Quote, hi, Dennis. I really am out of my element in this cloak and dagger world I found myself in, Murray wrote on December 10th, 2021. Quote, but did you know Mike Crabtree is a trustee of Meekins, Westbridge Capital? Apparently nobody at SRC did, as he did not disclose this obvious conflict of interest. For decades, Meekins had been president and CEO of Westbridge Capital, a private equity firm based in Saskatchewan. Murray has discovered in a public document online that Crabtree was an independent trustee with Westbridge Capital Partners Income Trust, the fund managed by Westbridge. Westbridge had also been a major funder of Quick 3. The document indicated Crabtree owned Westbridge shares and was set to be paid $12,000 annually as an independent advisor. Quote, that was the holy shit moment, said Fitzpatrick. It was the first time I could actually put a quantification to it. And then there's a visual showing that Mike Crabtree was indeed a trustee, shareholder, and paid advisor. I'll put that up here for the kids to take a look at. There you go, kids and cubs. So there's a list and has the name and municipality, principal residence, positions held and date of obtaining that position, compensation paid for by the fund, and all that down here. Mike Crabtree.
Interesting.
12,000 compensation, owns 8,500 units of the fund, 0.17%, and number of securities of the fund held after completion of maximum offering, 8,500, which is 0.03%. So not a huge percentage of the funds, but still enough for there to be a financial incentive to be able to be working on that and not being completely transparent about yourself. Mike Crabtree was hired as president and CEO of SRC in April 2019. A few months later, in October 2019, Michael Meekins and Aaron Herman were appointed to the SRC board at the recommendation of Jeremy Harrison. Fitzpatrick told CBC he believes the two men were selected and vetted by Crabtree. CBC asked Crabtree what role, if any, he played in Meekins and Herman's appointments to the SRC board, but he didn't reply. After vetting, they were reviewed and approved by Harrison's chief of staff. Fitzpatrick said he doesn't recall anyone disclosing the business relationships between Crabtree and the two new board members. Quote, Mike Crabtree brings in two of his friends to be his boss, he said, referring to Meekins and Herman's oversight role on the board. I think that's a pretty big problem. Fitzpatrick said he tried unsuccessfully for months to track down the paperwork related to those appointments and conflict of interest disclosures in order to see what information was provided. He was told the electronic documents were inaccessible because of a recent computer security breach, and the paper records couldn't be located because of a recent move. CBC has asked Crabtree, Meekins, Herman, and SRC for these documents, but they have not answered. Meekins and Herman have not replied to any of CBC's questions, instead forwarding CBC's emails to SRC spokesperson Rebecca Gatto. In an email, she said government policy prohibits the two men from responding to media inquiries because of the ongoing provincial election campaign. A directive from the Premier's office says, quote, in responding to requests from the media, ministries or officials who act as spokespersons for the government will provide only technical or factual information. Happy to touch base once the election is over, said Gatto. Herman and Meekins were key players in Quick 3 from its founding in 2011. Crabtree came along as a director and shareholder 2 years later. In 2014, he was appointed chair of Quick 3's board. At the same time, he was also serving as the SRC's VP of Energy. And then the article has a screen capture of Quick 3's website as it appeared in 2024 that shows Crabtree, Herman, and Meekins were indeed working together. In June 2018, Quick 3 was bought out by the US-based Smart Sand, a producer of specialized sand for the fracking industry, for $42.75 million. Of Quick 3's 11.6 million shares, Crabtree held 303,000, Herman held 1,002,050 $250,000, and Meekins held more than $2 million through a separate company. In an email on December 14th, 2021, Fitzpatrick outlined some of what he had found to SRC's VP responsible for human resources and 2 board members. Quote, "There appears to be a web of business relations," he wrote. "That is a significant issue. Pandora's box is wide open." Fitzpatrick also came across an email that he describes in retrospect as stunning. On March 8, 2021, Crabtree sent Fitzpatrick an email about a meeting he had just concluded with Jeremy Harrison. Crabtree said he told the minister about a company called Westbridge that was interested in investing in SRC's REE project. SRC was planning to partially fund the construction of an REE processing facility in partnership with a private sector investor. Harrison was very excited by the prospect and gave me the go-ahead to enter and progress into a detailed due diligence with Westbridge, Crabtree wrote in a 2021 email. The objective being to bring a cabinet decision item, or a CDI, forward as soon as practicable based on an agreed LOI, letter of interest, between Westbridge and SRC. And there's a copy here of the email in the news article for people to look at. Quote, "I was so naive, I wrote back with something like, 'Whoopee, this sounds good,' Fitzpatrick told CBC, noting that at the time he didn't know Crabtree and Meekins were directly connected to Westbridge. He said, this email is, quote, 'just inexcusable in hindsight.' Quote, 'Not one mention that Westbridge Capital is Mike Meekins' company,' said Fitzpatrick, also noting that Crabtree failed to mention his own connection to Westbridge. 'Single sourcing a contract to one of your board members, I can't think of a deeper pile of stuff to step in.'" Yeah. You think. CBC asked Crabtree by email why he proposed a Westbridge investment in SRC given his ties to both organizations. An SRC official replying on his behalf wrote, "Mike Crabtree complied with the appropriate conflict of interest procedures when disclosing his relationship with Westbridge. The potential investment option from Westbridge never moved past the due diligence stage and as such never became a conflict." We were colluding to collude, but since we decided in our collusion that we were not going to collude, it doesn't matter. Try that with the judge, see how far that gets you. CBC also asked Harrison whether Crabtree revealed to him that he was personally involved with Westbridge in their March 2021 conversation. Harrison didn't answer the question. Let me put an aside here that if the conflict of interest laws really allowed for this, then they need to be fixed. For some reason, I have a feeling they don't. I really have a feeling they don't. I don't know. Fitzpatrick said whether Harrison knew about Crabtree's Westbridge connection or not, he has questions to answer. Quote, "I don't know which is worse, not knowing, not doing any due diligence, or knowing and letting it occur," Fitzpatrick said. Yeah, either way, it's pretty damn bad. The plans to sole source the REE investment opportunity to Westbridge appear to have ended rather abruptly. A March 25th, 2021 email from Michael Meekins shows SRC was planning to put that investment opportunity to request for proposal, and Meekins was trying to figure out how Westbridge could qualify to put in a bid. In that email, Meekins asked an SRC official for, quote, "some guidance on the desire from SRC for Westbridge itself to participate in the upcoming rare earths request for proposals, and if that is desired, how to best manage my SRC board responsibilities." The board decided Westbridge could bid, provided Meekins recused himself from all meetings related to the project. It also decided he should not be provided any internal SRC documentation related to the REE project. Crabtree worked with Fitzpatrick to make sure Meekins followed the rules. In an April 29, 2021 email to Fitzpatrick, Crabtree discussed how to manage Meekins' presence in an upcoming board meeting. Quote, "Mike will recuse himself and then we will go into a short additional section on the REE for the remaining board," Crabtree wrote. "The board pack for Mike will not have information related to the final REE selection section, and the subsequent minutes he receives will have the REE discussion redacted." In an interview with CBC, Fitzpatrick noted Crabtree was silent about his own connection to Westbridge in that email. Furthermore, he said Crabtree himself attended meetings where the REE project was discussed and received raw board material about it despite his connection to Westbridge. For example, the REE project was discussed in a July 22, 2021 board meeting attended by Crabtree. The board reviewed a report produced by a private investment team working on the project. Crabtree was one of the members of that team. Relating to conflicts of interest, the board minutes say, quote, "None of the members had anything to declare." Quote, "At 3 board meetings in which rare earth was discussed, Crabtree said nothing," Fitzpatrick said. Fitzpatrick decided it was time to alert the board. He called a meeting for December 20th, 2021. He told Crabtree not to attend because his conduct would be the focus. According to Fitzpatrick's written summary, he told the board about the business relationships between Crabtree, Meekins, and Herman involving Quick 3 and Westbridge. Meekins attended that meeting. After that meeting, Kelly Bode, a lawyer and board member, wrote to Fitzpatrick saying, quote, "No matter what way I look at this, I think Mike Crabtree's relationship with Westbridge should have been disclosed." Board members asked Fitzpatrick to get conflict of interest disclosure forms that Meekins, Herman, and Crabtree had submitted so they could be reviewed at the next board meeting. Fitzpatrick set that meeting for January 27th to review documents and question Crabtree. But the documents would never arrive, and that meeting would never happen. In early January, Fitzpatrick and the other board members received an email from Crabtree that Fitzpatrick found jarring. Quote, "Please be informed that Craig Murray, Vice President, Mining and Minerals Division, has been released from employment effective January 6, 2022, he wrote. Less than a month earlier, Murray had emailed Fitzpatrick highlighting Crabtree's apparent conflict of interest. Now Crabtree was firing Murray. Quote, "This difficult decision follows a lengthy period of discussions and attempts at formal performance management process," wrote Crabtree. Fitzpatrick wrote to Harrison protesting the decision. Quote, "The evidence we have, performance summaries presented in previous succession planning documents, and his past excellent presentations attests to a strong standing as a member of the executive team," Fitzpatrick wrote. Fitzpatrick said Murray's dismissal was, quote, "unjustified," arguing, quote, "It appears that Craig Murray got fired for being a whistleblower." In his email to the board about Murray, Crabtree noted that SRC would negotiate a severance package and confidentiality agreement with him. Murray declined CBC's request for an interview but confirmed he was dismissed without cause. He also noted he received a full performance bonus from Crabtree for his final year of service. In an email, CBC asked Crabtree if Murray's dismissal was related to the conflict of interest concerns he was raising. A spokesperson replied, quote, "SRC confirms the decision to separate with the noted individual was in no way related to any allegations raised." The official added that SRC, quote, "does not tolerate retaliation against someone for making a good faith report." Fitzpatrick added Murray firing to the agenda of the late January board meeting that would never happen. At 9 a.m. on January 11th, 2022, Dennis Fitzpatrick spoke with SRC Minister Jeremy Harrison by phone to outline his concerns about the apparent conflict of interest. Fitzpatrick said the minister appeared well briefed on the issues and seemed unsurprised by what Fitzpatrick was alleging. He said Harrison also seemed very angry at him and, quote, and indicated his displeasure. Quote, "As far as he was concerned, SRC was stronger today than it ever was," said Fitzpatrick. "What I really understood from that was that he was fully prepared to back Mike Crabtree." Harrison told Fitzpatrick that he was likely going to be off the board at some point because he doesn't live in the province, Fitzpatrick said. Fitzpatrick had no idea the beginning of the end was mere hours away. Just 3 hours after the meeting with Harrison, SRC Communications official Rebecca Gatto had drafted an order in council that would boot Fitzpatrick from the board. That same order would appoint a new chair, George Prudat, according to an email obtained through Access to Information. Later that same day, Gatto said the change was based, quote, on an urgent order in council request from our minister's office. Quote, "The minister has requested the attached OC for SRC membership changes to be completed by tomorrow in order to go to cabinet on January 19th, Gatto wrote. That's exactly what happened. On January 19th, at Harrison's recommendation, provincial cabinet fired Fitzpatrick and appointed a new board chair, George Prudat. The lieutenant governor signed the order, but the ink was barely dry before that entire decision was turned upside down. Fitzpatrick describes what happens next as a, quote, clown show. 2 days after Fitzpatrick was fired, the provincial cabinet rehired him at Harrison's recommendation. The lieutenant governor signed the new order. At Harrison's recommendation?
Mm-hmm.
When Harrison himself ordered the order in council to get him fired. 2 days later. Wonder what happened during those 2 days. That means Fitzpatrick was fired and rehired in a 2-day stretch without ever knowing it. So the decision was made after the decision to fire him had been made, but had not been yet communicated to him. Something must have happened pretty damn quick.
One would think.
Yes. Documents obtained through Access to Information reveal how it happened. Quote, "New board order and council requested ASAP," read the subject line of a January 20th email to Mike Crabtree and his staff received from Harrison's chief of staff, Richard Davis. He said SRC should immediately restore Fitzpatrick to his role as board chair for a full 3-year term and demote George Prudette back to board member. We would like to approve it tomorrow morning, Davis wrote. By email, CBC asked Harrison why he made the initial decision to fire Fitzpatrick. Duh. You just had me do all this work, man. It's like, why? He said he did it, quote, after receiving concerns about Dennis Fitzpatrick as chair of the SRC. Fitzpatrick says Harrison has never discussed any concerns about his conduct with him. Fitzpatrick believes this was a smokescreen, a pretense for getting rid of him and avoiding further scrutiny about the alleged conflicts of interest. CBC asked Harrison what his concern about Fitzpatrick were, but he didn't reply. We also asked Harrison why he decided to rehire Fitzpatrick the day after a cabinet official fired him. Harrison said that on January 19th, the day Harrison's dismissal was official, he received a letter from Fitzpatrick outlining, quote, serious allegations against the CEO of the SRC. Upon receiving this correspondence, Dennis Fitzpatrick was reinstated to the board of SRC while the Saskatchewan Ministry of Justice investigated the allegations. Harrison said, oh my God, this guy really is too much.
Mm-hmm.
He fired him because he was a whistleblower and then used the fact that he was a whistleblower to justify rehiring.
Make it make sense. Please make it make sense, because that's just, what? It's the seventh circle of hell, isn't it?
Oh my God, the size of the balls.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The letter for the email from you saying to fire him.
Yeah.
Is out there. You sent it. People saw it. They acted on it. And now you can't use the excuse that you fired him because he was a whistleblower, because that's what you did. You're going to have to come up with a lie, because you used the fact that he was a whistleblower to justify rehiring him, which was a lie. Oh my God. I mean, this is Saskatchewan. This guy's panthers are on fire so high, so much on fire. You could see him 3 days away. Holy crap. Okay, the minister's statement is difficult to square with some facts. Yeah, don't say. Fitzpatrick says the letter was merely a summary of the January 11th meeting between the two men. In other words, he was simply reiterating allegations he had already presented directly to the minister. The only difference was that these allegations were written down. Yeah. In an email, CBC, it's funny how writing things down changes people's attitudes rather than just saying it, where it's not recorded. And it's like, oh, somebody just told me, and the words disappear into the ether. It's amazing how writing things down changes people. In an email, CBC asked Harrison, quote, why did you suggest that you first learned of the allegations against Mr. Crabtree on January 19th when you in fact learned of them in detail on January 11th? Harrison didn't answer because he would have to lie. I assume. In his statement, I have to say, I assume we're allegedly a lot here.
Right, right.
In his statement to CBC, Harrison also suggested that he launched an investigation as soon as he learned of Fitzpatrick's allegations against the CEO, but that seems inconsistent with the facts. CBC has documentation to show that immediately after the January 11th meeting, where Harrison learned of Fitzpatrick's allegations, he began the process of firing him. CBC has seen no mention of an investigation until after Harrison received Fitzpatrick's allegations in writing on January 19th. In an email, CBC asked Harrison, quote, why did you decide to fire Fitzpatrick immediately after that January 11th meeting where he had outlined the serious concerns? Harrison didn't answer. I am noticing here that a lot of the stuff that former Speaker Randy Weeks mentioned about the way he was treated and how his party became a bunch of bullies and thugs seems to be manifesting itself here. This is like another full exhibit of how the party's inner circle has gotten a little full of itself and a little too big for its britches, and the reason why it has to go. Please, Saskatchewan people, go vote. In a January 21st email sent 2 days after receiving Fitzpatrick's letter, Harrison told Fitzpatrick he was ordering a review of the concerns that he raised. Harrison didn't mention he had fired and rehired Fitzpatrick since they last met. Doody-doody-doo-doo-doo. Hi there, friend. What have I been up to the last few days? Oh, nothing. Nothing at all. Just preparing for this wonderful meeting with you, my friend.
It's
I haven't been
almost too
trying.
much.
I haven't spent the last 3 hours cleaning all the blood on the blades that I was stabbing in your back. You don't know about yet. Jeez, man. Harrison also turned the tables on the SRC board chair, saying, quote, he had received serious concerns about your conduct as chair of the board of the SRC. I do not believe I'm in position to find facts and adjudicate these matters, which I feel are imperiling to the future of the SRC, Harrison wrote in his January 21st, 2022 email. So he's committing to the bit. Here, he's committing to the second lie. Harrison said he was asking Cam Swan, deputy minister to the premier, to conduct a review. Fitzpatrick said that this was the first time Harrison had mentioned concern about this conduct. He said he believes Harrison made this accusation to stop the January 27th board meeting where the alleged conflict of interests would have been discussed. Of course, you think? Because now that he's on the defensive, the best defense is a good offense. So let's show that you're taking these matters really seriously by writing to the board and bringing it to the attention that you now know about it. Me, integrity commissioner? Me, conflict of interest commissioner? Being in cahoots with them? Why, no. Look, I did this. Yeah, but before you did that, what did you do? But you can see him. You can see him. He's scrambling.
It's a case of truth being stranger than fiction. Because if I wrote something like this, nobody would read it because this is just too absurd. Nobody's going to believe that.
Oh my God! So he's like
literally.
The
more
scrambling.
Bizarre things are, the more realistic they become.
Oh my God. Okay. In that letter, Harrison said, quote, during the period of the review, I would direct that the board take no matters of a substantive or significant consequence into consideration. Fitzpatrick said that some board members echoed the minister's sentiment, saying, quote, we can't do this without this cloud of suspicion over your behavior. He said Harrison unspecified accusations, quote, were the big stick in the spokes, causing him to flip right over the front handlebar, smash my face on the ground. Cam Swan, the man appointed by Harrison to look into Fitzpatrick's allegations, asked a Ministry of Justice official to conduct a review. In a March 7th letter to Fitzpatrick, Swan said that, quote, the major allegations between the board and the corporate leadership of the SRC were not substantiated. He said the review found there had been a, quote, breakdown in communication in other government's issues, which would need to be further reviewed and improved. Fitzpatrick asked for a copy of the report, but he said it was not provided. CBC has also asked for that document, but has not received it. Quote, what they did through this process was create this veil of deniability, said Fitzpatrick. Days later, Harrison called Fitzpatrick to tell him he would be dismissed as board chair. Quote, he told me he'd sort of lost confidence in me, said Fitzpatrick. When I asked him questions, he got really, really upset, he said, adding Harrison became rude and abrasive. A year after Fitzpatrick was dismissed, the NDP opposition began asking about conflicts and controversies involving SRC's board of directors. Harrison pleaded ignorance. Quote, I'm not very involved in kind of board stuff, he told the Legislative Assembly during a meeting on April 19th, 2023.
Yeah.
This came out 7 days ago. I'm guessing it's not been a good ride for the Sask Party and Mr. Harrison over the last week.
I would think.
Wow, that is a story. Okay, so it seems that in the province of Saskatchewan, if you're looking at election results, look at Prince Albert, look at Moose Jaw, some of the smaller cities that have a portion of the vote that comes from a more urban and a more rural riding section coming together. And in the final days, it seems that there has been some campaigning in Martinsville, Blainmore, that electoral district. Both parties have been campaigning there, but it's known to be a safe Saskatchewan Party territory. Yes.
You know what to do, folks. You know what to do.
Mr. Grizzly's showing a copy of the McLean's, the infamous McLean's The Resistance cover, and there's an X on front of Brian Pallister and Andrew Scheer and Jason Kenney, leaving Doug Ford and Scott Moe to go. And you can show Moe the dough today.
Yeah. You know what to do, Saskatchewan.
Yeah.
It's in your own best interest to vote this guy out who's been there for, 17 years or something?
I don't know if Moe's been there, but that party's been there for
17
years.
Party has been, correct,
yeah.
Yes.
There's also in the ridings of White City Capel near Regina and Wakamasi. And Wakamasi is known to flip, and I believe is in the Saskatchewan Party hands at the moment. So those are some electoral districts to be looking for. The NDP needs to flip 17 seats to win. And little known fact, if you're not in Saskatchewan, but Carla Beck is the 8th Saskatchewan NDP leader in 15 years. So as they've been losing and losing, they've been going through them. The NDP hit a low of 6 seats during this period. And their previous leader, Ryan Miley, had raised it to 13, but resigned after his party lost an important by-election, which left the room for Carla Beck to come in. I think it was fewer than 2 years ago. So that's what's going on in Saskatchewan. Again, vote. Vote, vote, vote. And remember, friends, don't let friends do democracy alone. So bring people with you. Mr. Grizzly, you had also mentioned, because you had mentioned Nova Scotia here. I think I have a couple of other things here.
Well, I'm just looking at some stuff right now from Elections BC, and people are losing their ever-loving minds, screaming that the election was stolen and that there was fraud and that there...
Okay, we could talk about BC instead.
Well, it's just because this is becoming a big story right now, and I'm
yeah, it is. Yep.
Like, come on, people. Elections Canada is one of the most their integrity is not up for question.
But this is not Elections Canada.
No, it's Elections BC, but same thing.
Yes,
I mean,
they're all in the same boat, but in
Yes.
Canada we have a good tradition of that. But it's just it is an entirely different organization.
yes.
In British Columbia, the votes have been recounted. There was some mail-in votes. Of course, sometimes when you vote and there's mail-in ballots, they have to be in by voting day, and sometimes they need to be postmarked by voting day. When they need to be postmarked by voting day, they usually allow a window of time after voting day for the votes to arrive, because if you mailed it on voting day itself, it might arrive 3 or 4 days later, depending where you are in the province.
Absentee ballots.
Yes. And they don't start opening them and counting them, right, until all of them have arrived, because then some people can make allegations for by the numbers. So we had to wait. So they gave from the Monday of election day till the end of the week for all of them to arrive. And then they all started counting them at some point all at the same time. That was the mail-in votes. Then you also have absentee votes. Absentee ballots are people that know that they are not going to be there on election day, so vote early, like this, through other means. So those hadn't been counted. So there had been a certain number of votes that hadn't been counted, and they have, I think they've got all of the mail-in votes. And with all of the mail-in votes counted, there was no changes in the positions, but there was 2 ridings, electoral districts that were under 100. There was one that was just over, that was at 102. And in that one, the counting of the mail-in ballots have reduced the lead from 102 to 12. And the lead of 102 was by a Conservative candidate.
Mm-hmm.
So if the other 2 electoral districts hold, because they were NDP, and this one does flip, because there are still a few more ballots yet to be counted of a different type. I think the absentee ballots specifically today are the ones. So the mail-in ballots have all been counted, and now they're moving to absentee ballots. Because the margin is now 12, and if there are more than 12 absentee ballots, then it could flip, so they will count them. If there were fewer, then they could just declare it, because mathematically it would be impossible for it to flip. If that electoral district does flip into NDP hands with the remaining ballots, then it'll be 47, 44, 2, and the NDP will have an outright majority by 1 seat.
Well, and I got to put this on the screen so that you'll understand how much Russian propaganda has played into this, because you have people who, I don't even know if this is a real person. This is probably a, but I'll put it on the screen right now. And this is what people are saying. I'm like, oh my dear Lord. Saying, considering Trudeau hired so many government workers, liberals hire liberals. You don't think ballot counters are not mostly liberals? Pretty sure this is the current situation. What? There's no Liberal Party in the province. What the hell are they going on about? These people have gone right down the rabbit hole of Russian propaganda.
Yep.
Or maybe Indian propaganda. I don't know, but it's propaganda from another nation who is trying to interfere in provincial elections now and have people believing the most outlandish conspiracy theory, right brain addled shit I've ever read in my life. I'm really seriously concerned. Now, I say this because I question how many people
And
are
then
real.
you have yeah. And we also have this from our friend David Parker.
Oh,
Notice the
that
sarcasm
idiot.
dripping.
Yeah, he's not our
David
friend.
Parker. Dear American friends,
Mhm.
please pay attention to what is happening in British Columbia. They just had a provincial election. 2 of the ridings were within less than 50 votes of the Conservative Party of British Columbia winning. I'm not actually sure that that's true. Suddenly, days after the election, 15,000 ballots appear. 2 ridings were swung to the Communists, New Democrats, and now an entire province of 5 million plus people will suffer under communism for another 4 years minimum. Do not let them steal your election. Once they have stolen one, they never stop. R.I.P. Canada, you have been destroyed. This was on the 26th at 7:19 p.m. Not exactly sure how he could know this because at that point, someone actually had pointed out. Interestingly, no writing has actually flipped at this point in the count. They might, as absentee ballots have yet to be counted, but he insists they already have been, which they had not been at that time. Max Fawcett replied to that with, he's smart enough to be able to read the trend lines there and morally bankrupt enough to play dumb about why it is happening.
Exactly.
So this is the Donald Trump thing all over again. In the States, they have this thing called the red mirage that they warned you about and that they're warning people about again. Like this, because election day voting is counted first.
Yeah.
And Republicans tend to vote more on election day. So in a lot of the swing states, it shows a big Republican lead at first. And then they start counting in the mail-in ballots and the absentee votes, the overseas votes, and all the other types of votes that are there. And then the lead diminishes and then it flips somewhere along the way. And Republicans go around, oh my God, they stole them because they suddenly found all these ballots. So it's not suddenly found. It's the order in which the ballots are counted.
Trying to
It's simply
explain
the order in which. So it's the same thing here. Like this, so we have a little bit of a blue mirage where there was one seat that it looked like was going to be conservative because the person was leading by 102, but there was 15,000 more votes. Not in that riding specifically, but there was 15,000 more votes. Divide that by the number of ridings if you want to just play statistics average. Yes. And if the amount per riding is more than 102, then the riding could very easily flip, especially, Canada is not like the United States, but if they're even within a riding, if there's a certain neighborhood that's a little more liberal than or more Democrat, and it happens to be from the polling station in that section of the neighborhood, very well, there could be 100 votes more for one party than another. Like, come on. So, I mean, they suddenly appeared and they're stealing the election. And you have to live under communism. Noticing, I'm guessing he's maybe thinking that his time in Canada is over. Because Danny does have her leadership review coming in early November, and he's becoming less effective here. So maybe he's announcing to the American friends that he's open for business for what they need down there. He might find a more receptive audience. Just saying. So yeah, that's what's going on in BC. So nothing absolutely yet completely finalized because there are still a few more types of those votes to count. I'm guessing that they take longer for absentee ballots and all that type of stuff because there's longer verification process to make sure that those votes are actually valid. But those should be happening today, and hopefully we will have a final result today. But right now it is looking very much that it's going to be that it's confirmed because there are fewer votes left to count, and in the 2 electoral districts that could have flipped back to the Conservatives, the NDP has only widened their leads in those ones. So it looks less and less likely. So it's looking less and less likely that there could be a flip in favor of the Conservatives. So it's looking like not for sure, but it's looking way more certain that it is an actual NDP government. Will it just be one with a supply and confidence agreement with the Green Party? Or will it be a full majority on its own by 1 seat? which still creates the problem of having to choose a speaker. So we might have a
Right.
green speaker.
Well,
We might get a green speaker
which is fine.
if there's a majority.
That's fine.
Yeah.
I'm just curious to see what's going to happen. I mean, with all of these people screaming election fraud, voter fraud, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, and how many of them are real human beings? A vast majority of it is bots.
Oh, yes.
And the real human beings have suffered by swallowing hook, line, and sinker the Russian bullshit line of propaganda that they keep spewing, keep whispering in people's ear. And we all know that's been going on for years. We've talked about it. Tenant Media was the proprietor thereof. And here's the other thing.
Yeah.
Didn't we just watch no, we didn't watch it. I saw a video the other day of the woman who formerly was from Russia Today, who has come forward and said in an interview on Russian television that, look, if they shut that one down, don't worry. We have another one lined up right away to go. It's like they're masters at propaganda. As soon as you close down Tenet, don't worry. They've got 6 more that pop up and continue to spew their bullshit. And unfortunately, there are millions of people that believe this. They swallow it. It's because they get into their bias confirmation echo chamber, and anything that supports the narrative that mainstream media bad, everybody's out to get you, Russia's the good country, they will believe it. And then they'll spew it. And then they will say, election fraud, voter fraud, somebody stole it, stop the steal. It's like, oh my God.
I know.
Can we get some Thorazine up in here?
Oh my God. Okay. Thorazine. Okay. So in Nova Scotia, just to make sure that I get that little bit here. Where did I put that note? Sorry. There we go. So Tim Houston called the snap election, said it's going to be held on November 26th. Like we said, despite the fact that he in 2021 passed a fixed election day law in Nova Scotia, as it was the only province at the time that did not have one, claiming at the time it was necessary to give elections Nova Scotia certainty, to save money, and to even the playing field between opponents. He says he wants a renewed mandate from Nova Scotians before making significant investments to improve affordability. He's also trying to ensure that Nova Scotia doesn't have a conflict with the federal election. Zach Churchill, who's the leader of the Nova Scotia Liberal Party, is on the record as saying, quote, he has called this election because he thinks it is better for him. And he is going to pretend that this election is about what's happening in Ottawa, but it's not. It's about what is happening in Nova Scotia. Churchill also says he does not support the carbon tax. All the provincial party leaders are running away from it, though Houston is trying to tie him to the federal levels through the tax itself. At dissolution, the Progressive Conservatives had 34 seats, the Liberals had 14, the New Democrats 6, and there was 1 independent. So there you go with that. Also around the world, kits and cubs, there is a new prime minister in Japan. In fact, this is the second new prime minister in Japan in a couple of days, I think, because the old prime minister, one stepped down and was replaced by a man named Shigeru Ishiba, who became it says he's going to continue to keep ruling. Okay, maybe I was mistaken about this. But 3 days after being named, called an election. Basically says, like this, I want a mandate, don't get a chance to get to know me, all that kind of stuff, just call. And apparently that election did not turn out very well. The country faces an uncertain political future as the coalition led by the long-ruling Liberal Democrat Party has lost its majority in Parliament, its worst result in over a decade. Ishiba was sworn in as Prime Minister just this month after winning the leadership of his party, but he called a snap election to seal his mandate. In a speech on Monday, he admitted the LDP received, quote, severe judgment from voters and added his party, quote, would humbly accept this. Quote, the Japanese people expressed their strong desire for the LDP to do some reflection and become a party that acts in line with the people's will, Ishiba told national broadcaster NHK. The LDP and its much smarter coalition partner, Komeito, have altogether taken 215 seats, falling short of the 233-seat majority needed to govern. It's the first time the LDP has lost its parliamentary majority since 2009. The party has ruled Japan almost continuously since 1955. The result comes after a tumultuous few years for the LDP, which saw a cascade of scandals, widespread voter apathy, and record low approval ratings. The party had seen approval ratings of below 20% earlier in the year in the wake of a political fundraising corruption scandal. Ishiba on Monday pledged to enact fundamental reform regarding the issue of money in politics. We need to answer to the people's criticism. That's how I will take responsibility for the loss of the election, he said. He also promised to revitalize rural Japan and tackle inflation. Japan's parliament now has 30 days to convene and choose a prime minister. The chosen PM's party or coalition will form the government and can do so even without a majority of seats. Ishiba said there are no plans to expand his political coalition at this stage. This raises the likely possibility that he will retain his premiership and his coalition will continue to rule Japan without a majority. It also means they will no longer have the power to pass laws unilaterally. Another possibility is that the opposition parties unite to form the government. The largest one, the Constitutional Democratic Party, CDP, won 148 seats, up from 98 previously. But that's a more unlikely scenario, as Japan's opposition parties historically have faced difficulty in uniting or convincing voters they are a viable option to govern. The CDP had an approval rating of just 6.6% before parliament was dissolved. So that's what's going on in Japan. And in Georgia, there was an election, and it would seem that Georgia is a former Russian republic, and wants to join. Soviet Republic. That's true. Sorry,
Not
thank you for the
republic,
correction.
Soviet bloc.
Bloc.
It was never a republic.
The republics within.
Yeah.
You know what I mean. Not an actual republic. And its president seems to be rarely progressive, but I think they have a president and prime minister system because there was an anti-twist LGBT law that was presented to her to sign, and she refused to do so. So there's a big section of Georgia that wants to join the EU, and that there's a process on the way. It seems that the party that's in favor of that lost the election to another party that would that's more pro-Putin, and that one got 54% of the vote. And it seems that there are a lot of people claiming that there is no way that could possibly have happened, and there are some objections going on, and a push probably to try and get rid of the president because she is not on board. She says she will not officialize the results.
Mm-hmm.
So we're probably going to be hearing a lot more going on in the next couple of days about what's happening in Georgia.
Well, let's pivot for a moment here and discuss the Washington Post and their not endorsing a candidate. Now, a lot of people are freaking out about this. Why aren't they doing blah, blah, blah? And they're saying, no, it's because Bezos is afraid if Trump wins and they endorse Harris that he'll suffer, blah, blah, blah. You know what? Here's my take on it, and some may be surprised to hear this. I actually support them not endorsing a candidate.
Okay.
I don't believe any news organization or newspaper or media should be endorsing any candidate. They shouldn't, because it takes away their impartiality. I don't think any newspaper or any television, news station, or CNN, whatever the case may be, should be endorsing a candidate ever. I just don't. I've always disagreed with it. I've always thought it can sway public opinion. It can change elections. I just don't think it's a good idea. I've never agreed with it. That's my personal thought on it. A lot of other people think differently, but I'm like, no, you influence people with your newspaper. You should remain impartial. You should not pick a side. And I'm not both sidesing anything here. You shouldn't pick a side.
Mm-hmm.
If you pick a side and that candidate loses, how's it going to look for the next 4 years anytime you print anything negative about the current administration? People are going to label you as a liberal or a conservative rag, whichever the case is. So, yeah, I look, I know why Bezos is doing it. He's afraid of losing money. I get that. But I actually agree with them not endorsing anybody. I don't think a newspaper should. That's been my opinion for years. It's not going to change. It's, you're there to report the news, not make it.
Mm-hmm. Now, the reason this particular decision got tongues wagging is that the Washington Post is the newspaper for which Bob Woodward,
correct,
Woodward and Bernstein, Watergate, worked, and Democracy Dies in Darkness is Bob Woodward's statement that the Washington Post adopted as its tagline.
Mm-hmm.
So The Washington Post is describing this as going back to its roots when it never did, but it has.
Mhm.
A lot recently. I think it, in fact, had even come out in support of Joe Biden during this election cycle when he was still the candidate, but
Yeah, and then they backed out.
won't do it now. So that part does look pretty bad,
Oh, agreed.
considering this particular newspaper's history. So even with your point, Mr. Grizzly, the Washington Post is still pretty special in this regard. So it does grab attention. It does grab attention, and there's a lot of commentary here. It's if democracy dies in darkness, why are you turning off the lights?
No, and I understand,
Right.
but I think no newspaper should endorse anybody ever. That's my opinion. Agree, disagree, doesn't matter. We all have our own opinions. They're like assholes. Everybody's got one.
It's a completely valid opinion, and it is solidly defended. Right, solidly defended, solidly argued. You didn't go off into some flight of fancy. You didn't invent stuff. You didn't. If I did not agree with that opinion, I could very calmly and rationally see how you could see it that way. It is a valid case made for it, right? At some point, it becomes about tastes and colors, and nobody agrees on those. Right? You might find some people that agree, but nobody shares all your same tastes and all your favorite colors.
Well, I mean, this is interesting comment from PNC Bio. Editorial boards ruin your argument, Paul. They most certainly skew coverage. Not endorsing feels like lying. I hear that. I get what you're saying. I've never liked any news organization to endorse. I've never liked it. That's, again, my opinion. I've always felt it was not in the best interest of democracy. Maybe I'm way out in left field and wrong about this, but that's how I've always felt. It's just not in the best interest of democracy. Look, in editorials, that's just an editorial. That's somebody's opinion. It's an opinion piece. That's what an editorial is. It's different than a full endorsement of the organization. Editorial's one person's word. When the entire organization, as in the Washington Post or the Toronto Star, the Globe and Mail, endorses a candidate, that's different. Because it's like saying everybody that works there is voting this way, when we know that's not the case. Well, let me rephrase that. When many of us understand that that's not the case. Not everybody knows that.
Yeah, indeed. Since we're talking about the U.S. here, it seems that even though the polls are still showing that it's tight, Donald Trump is having a little bit of trouble. His Save America PAC has raised $1.4 million in September, but spent $4 million, mostly on Trump's legal fees. It has less than $2 million cash on hand, with $5 million in legal bills left to pay. Trump is spending about $90,000 a day in legal fees, but none of it is its own money. It's all money he has suckered out of the people through fleecing them with his grift. Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss, if those names ring a bell, those are the two election workers in Georgia that Rudy Giuliani had a whole bunch of people turn their sights on and even maybe threaten, claiming that they shared little flash drives like they were vials of cocaine, when really they were a ginger mint. And he got sued for defamation, and basically the judge said those two deserve to live like queens for the rest of their lives for what you did to them. And then he claimed that he didn't have the money, and then the court said, well, prove it, Father Mucker. And then he refused to do that. So Shay Moss and Ruby Freeman petitioned the court to have access to all his personal belongings, like his condos and his World Series rings and a whole bunch of stuff like that, so that they could sell them to start making some of the money, which I think is of $148 million or something like that he owes them. Pretty big judgment. And they were granted that. So it seems that they have the authority to start seizing Rudy Giuliani's personal effects in order to get their money from the settlement.
Well, interesting how that works out. I think he's pretty broke, though, to begin with.
And it seems
he's hawking coffee now.
Yes. And it seems that Trump is not paying him for the legal services.
Of course not.
And he's not filing the petition stuff saying that Trump owes them the money for the legal services, because then Ruby and Shay could start suing Trump to get the money that they owe Rudy and said, fork it over here. So, and Rudy wants that money. So that's one of the reasons why in the court documents he hasn't declared that specifically. So that should be interesting.
I don't know if you've seen this clip yet, because I mentioned it in the descriptor, and I wanted to show it this morning.
Yes.
Before we wrap here. This is Dr. Phil, who I have had a strong distaste for decades, because he's an exploitive, manipulative piece of shit. And this is him last night, and listen to him trying to exploit and manipulate once again.
Tell you what the critics are going to say when they hear me talking about this. They're going to say, well, now, wait a minute, come on. Isn't Trump a bully? And let me tell you why the answer to that question is no.
How much you getting paid there, Dr. Phil? How much you getting paid to do this, you piece of shit?
Because to be a bully, there has to be an imbalance of power. And when there's not, it's just called a debate. And he's just better at it than anybody else.
No, he's not. Man couldn't debate his way out of a paper bag if it was soaking wet.
Oh my God. Yes. He was better. He was so better at it than everybody else that he refused an opportunity to defeat her so soundly again.
Yeah.
In a second debate. Right? Right?
Oh, hi, Mackenzie. Mackenzie Ray Hoover Lord. I'm reading the wrong information, lefties. I don't know what that means. Could you get a little bit more descriptive? I'd like to know exactly what you mean by that, please. And by the way, we're not lefties, we're centrists. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
Also, a group called Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, all referred to as a crew, got the incident report from Trump's visit to Arlington Cemetery that he tried to use as a backdrop.
Right.
And apparently it is so bad that the entire FOIA request was blacked out.
Whoa.
So there's definitely a story there. Just saying. Okay, we have to go soon. Just a couple of updates on stuff. The Montreal dock workers staged a 24-hour walkout on Sunday in a bid to pressure management during stalled contract negotiations. The Maritime Employers Association says the job action will not help. So we'll see what happens from that. There was a major Vatican summit on the role of women in the church that has wrapped up, and the summit stopped short of giving women more equity again. The hope was that the synod would recommend ordaining female deacons, which is a lesser role to that of a priest, but in the final text, the synod did not move forward on this. It did state, however, that there was no reason or impediment that should prevent women from carrying out leadership roles in the church. I guess just not that one either. Eventually, they'll come around to figuring out one leadership role that they can take, because they sure found reason or impediment to prevent them from being ordained as female deacons because they didn't do it. So the statement belies the actions there. All right. What else do we have here? Also, according to Food Banks Canada, greater than twice the number of people visited a food bank in 2023 as did in 2019. Visits are up 6% compared to last year in March, year over year, with 2 million visits, nearly double the rate of 5 years ago. Some are calling on the federal government to create a GST rebate for groceries and essential help. There's a group called Bridges of Hope that says that they've gone from serving 13,000 boxes of food a month to 17,000. And they are doing things like opening the boxes of cereals rather than giving a full box and giving a 4-cup portion in order to make the food that they get go further. So, yes, as we keep on saying, food banks are a symbol of the failure of a government,
yes.
But people still got to eat. So if you can help, please do. That would be very, very important. Finally, in Saskatchewan, before we go, kids and cubs, as I mentioned, greater than 170,000 people have cast early ballots in the Saskatchewan election. in the first 3 days of early voting, and there were a few more days than that. So that's more than triple the number in the same period in last election. So hopefully, in Canada, early voting, it's not so much. Doesn't tend to lean more progressive as it does in the States. So maybe it's not a sign of anything, but if there are some parallels, that could be a good sign. All right, kits and cubs. Mr. Grizzly, do we have a show?
What's that? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you there.
So I'm saying, do we have a show, Mr. Grizzly?
Oh yes, we do. I have a clip for you too that we'll share in a moment.
Okay, I have one for the Easter egg for you
Yeah,
as
I saw
well.
that.
Okay.
I saw that.
All right, kits and cubs. That's the end of this episode of the Daily Beaver Morning Show. We hope that you love listening to us, and because we love making this for you. Remember, sharing is caring and word of mouth is priceless. So please tell your peeps and poops all about us. Thank you so very much. If you would like to help us in other ways, for example, like not missing an episode, you don't have to, thanks to the Ray Girl. By the way, thank you. The concert was freaking fantastic. We had Canadian bluesman Steve Strongman open the show. And this guy has won awards throughout the world for his virtuosity with the blues guitar. He was absolutely phenomenal. Juno Award-winning artist as well. If you haven't heard from him and you do like the blues, look him up. Steve Strongman, good Canadian artist. And he opened for the legendary Fabulous Thunderbirds, led, of course, by Kim Wilcox, who is... by the accounts of many, probably the world's best blues harmonica player.
Mm-hmm.
And we got traded to quite a masterclass during that concert as well. And a little bit, about 3/4 of the way through their set, they invited Steve on set to jam and play with them as well. And Wilcox and Strongman have written some songs together as well. So they're good friends. So it was a wonderful night out. Thank you so much to the Ray Girl for the tickets. You were not able to use them, but they did get put to good use, and they were quite enjoyed. So thank
Awesome.
you.
Well done.
So if you scan the QR code that Mr. Grizzly will make appear, if he hasn't already while I was talking, or you go to podpage.com/The True North Eager Beaver, lowercase letters with a hyphen between each one of those words. When you click subscribe, and when we have something fresh off the bandwidth, we will come directly to you. If you would like to support us in other ways, make like Kit Elaine and surf on down to the True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated YouTube page, where we have buttons like, share, and subscribe. Boom. If you click on those, kits and cubs, that makes us very, very, very happy. And we know that you like to make us happy. So we appreciate everything that you do for us. And if you'd like to support us in yet another way, this way financially, well, that QR code that appeared by Mr. Grizzly's head brings you to our coffee page, which is where you will find our tip jar. That's coffee, ko-fi.com/eagerbeaver, lowercase letters, all in one word. If you happen to have a few extra dollars that you would like to send our way to help us with the production costs of the show, because you like the product that we do and you want to encourage us to do more, if you leave them there, that's how we can get them. And we thank you so very, very, very much for all of your contributions. Now, if you are not able at all to contribute financially, please do not worry, because the gift of your attention and the gift of your participation are the ones that mean the most to us. And, well, we love to hear from you. So please write to us at truenortheagerbeaver@gmail.com, at our Twitter feed @TrueEager, our Facebook page, True North Eager Beaver. And if you're listening on YouTube, right down here in our comment section. We do try to read everything. We may not answer everything, but we do read everything, and we thank you for everything that you send us. Now, kits and cubs, because democracy is something that you do. If you are one of our Saskatchewan kids, please, please, please get out and vote. Don't sit this one out. Like showed with the polling, this too, like in British Columbia, could be a 1-seat difference squeaker. Every vote counts. We need you in the game. If we can flip this one, that would be absolutely amazing. And we definitely need this. And, Saskatchewan, you've been through enough. You deserve good things. 17 years of conservative rule is enough.
Yeah. But they'll freak out because Justin Trudeau wants to run for prime minister. He wants to carry the party into the next election, right? So he's been in that position for 9 years, and they're saying, "Hey, he's got to go," but you've been there 17, and that's okay, and you're going for more. Right.
Yeah. The government is old and tired and is mired in scandal and has got nothing left except for like locker room change policies.
Mm-hmm.
Like, come on, you're last in healthcare, you're last in education. You got the highest rate of teen pregnancy and some of the highest rates of STI transmission. Get yourself a new man. Get yourself a new man, or in this case, get yourself a woman.
Oh, a woman. Yes. Please go out and do that. Make it happen. Remember, the New Democratic Party was formed in Saskatchewan, the same place that brought us Tommy Douglas, who created our national universal health care system. So, Saskatchewan, remember your community and your greater community, in this case, all your friends and neighbors across the province, and how it will make a difference for the lives of everybody you know by voting in a new government, one that actually cares about you.
Mm-hmm. And as Cassie Lake reminds us on the chat, 22 of Mo's MLAs aren't seeking re-election. So while Mo was out there, talking about his team as the experience, whatnot, just remember there was a mass exodus from his party like there was from Higgs because he became a sort of one-man show, and you saw that in the campaign, nobody behind them. He sort of fixed that near the end for the final push. He's had everybody behind them. But, that experienced team has a heck of a lot of rookies.
Oh, yes.
Just saying, he's not. He doesn't have the power of incumbency in 22 ridings, 22 of those districts. That could be enough to make the flip there too with the NDP. All right, so that's the Because Democracy is Something That You Do portion. Remember, kids, to be kind to and gentle with yourself. Mr. Grizzly, do you have some words of wisdom for us today?
Yeah, remember, democracy is something you do. So please, folks in Saskatchewan, throughout the prairies, get your friends, call them up and say, hey, you got to get out to the ballot box today and cast your ballot, cast your vote, because one vote can make a difference. It really can. And we've seen a close race in British Columbia. We still don't even know the final outcome there. It's that close. So yeah, your vote does count. Get out there and cast that ballot.
But if you are centrist and progressive, imagine the headlines tomorrow. Imagine the headlines tomorrow. 3 provincial elections, 3 times the conservative option rejected.
Mm-hmm.
2 flips.
Could very well be.
Maybe that could be start of the change of the media narrative in Ottawa.
Maybe. We'll see. Alrighty.
Mr. Grizzly. You are listening to a True North Eager Beaver Media Incorporated podcast. The True North Eager Beaver podcasts are proudly brought to you by our founding sponsors, the Misfit Mysteries from Corvid Moon Publishing, your source for science fiction, fantasy, and cozy mysteries featuring a broad diversity of characters, CanadianTarot.com, their uniquely Canadian online eclectic tarot community, and The Peppermaster, hot pepper sauces made from farm-fresh ingredients to thrill your taste buds and expand your mind. We are grateful to the Crier Media Network for its support, Pete Jarvis for our artwork, and Paul Joseph Something for our opening and closing sequence music. All right, Mr. Grizzly, you had something for the kids.
Yes, that you sent me a few moments ago that ties right into what we were just talking about. This is interesting little video. Watch this. 30 seconds.
Why are there so many kids in this class?
Why do we have to wait so long?
The choices we make at the ballot box live with our kids for years to come. Vote to invest in our kids and their public schools. A message from the Saskatchewan Teachers Federation.
Interesting how they didn't tell you who to vote for. They just said do it. I really appreciate that. They didn't tell you who to vote for. Just do it.
Yeah, the teachers' federations have had some good game lately in some of their commercials, and that one, for those who haven't been watching, every time a kid asks one of those questions, the camera sort of puts the kids that were in forward focus and back focus, and then focuses on a ballot box that's somewhere around them. So it's like, if you don't like the bigger class sizes and long lines to go to the bathroom and all that kind of stuff, then maybe you should vote.
That was for the counselor, not the toilet.
Yes. So yeah, that was a Saskatchewan Teachers Federation ad that came up early in the campaign. That was just particularly good, and I'd been wanting to show it for a while. Mr. Grizzly, you had something.
Yeah, it's 53 seconds from Kathleen Monk from the Monk and Associates organization, and I think everybody should have a watch of this, because listen to what she has to say about a certain person.
You're going to have to get the security clearances and do the media. You actually have to do both. That's the nature of the job. You want the promotion, you got to get the clearance and do the work. And people understand that. They don't want you to choose your party over your country. When the country's at threat, whatever the nature of that threat is, any politician needs to be unified in their stance to defend our country and do whatever it takes to do that. And right now, Poilievre is choosing not to take the security clearance, get the information he needs to make the analysis, and no counter argument or rebuttal from his spokesperson or from him is going to fix that. He needs to get briefed in, and he needs to do the work of the job that a future prime minister, if he's going to be one, has to do. It just really, but
boom,
right?
Boom.
You have folks who are, I don't know about Kathleen Monk's political leanings, but you have folks who are right-leaning, some are conservative, some are progressive conservative, and they're all calling for the same damn thing. Put your country before your party, get the clearance. And he refuses to do it, which makes you wonder, like Michael Chong said, well, he's got something to hide clearly and is afraid it may be used against him.
Get the clearance, take the briefing, protect the nation.
Yeah. Got to go, folks. I'll see you later.